Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, saudara-saudara sekalian. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Yang saya hormati Bapak Harichan Silalahi, Ketua Pembina Yayasan CSIS, Bapak Yusuf Wanandi, Wakil Ketua Pembina Yayasan CSIS, Bapak Dr. Hasan Wirajuda, oh maaf Pak, pangling saya Pak, anggota Pembina Yayasan CSIS, Bapak Profesor Jisman Simanjuntak, Ketua Pengurus Yayasan CSIS, Ibu Clara Yuwono, Wakil Ketua Pengurus Yayasan CSIS, Ibu Dr. Mari LK Pangestu, anggota Pembina Yayasan CSIS, Ibu Ria Murdani, anggota pengawas Yayasan CSIS, Bapak Dr. Rizal Sukma, Bapak Dr. Jose Rizal Damuri, Executive Director CSIS, Ibu Dr. Medelina Henditio, Wakil Direktur Eksekutif Bidang Operasional CSIS, Ibu Dr. Syafiah Muhibat, Wakil Direktur Eksekutif Bidang Studi CSIS, Bapak Dr. Felix Vermonte, Senior Fellow CSIS, yang hadir mendampingi saya hari ini, Letnan Jenderal TNI Purnawirawan Safri Samsudin, Ibu Metia Hafid, Ketua Komisi 1 DPR RI dan Wakil Ketua Tim Kampanye Nasional saya, Letnan Jenderal TNI Purnawirawan Hotman Mangaraja Panjaitan, mantan duta besar kita di Perancis, Laksamana Madya TNI Purnawirawan Didit Ashraf, mantan Wakil Kepala Staf Angkatan Laut dan Wakil Gubernur Lemhanas, dan seluruh duta besar negara-negara sahabat yang hadir di sini. Karena begitu banyak perwakilan dari negara asing, ada 80, dalam rangka menghormati para tamu, as a courtesy, I would like to give my talk in English. First of all, I would like to thank the CSIS for the great honor given to me. I'm being invited here at this very illustrious and very famous and very important institution. The history of CSIS, I think, can be considered as really a part of the recent history of Indonesia for the last 5 decades. Therefore, it's a great honor for me. And today I've been asked to talk about the direction and the strategy of our foreign policy. If, in the event that I get the mandate from my people and I will form the next government, I think it could be of interest to see the direction and the strategy of the foreign policy that I will pursue. However, basically, I think all observers of Indonesia will realize that the tradition of Indonesia's foreign policy has been very, very clear. From the early days of our independence and our sovereignty, we have opted for an independent foreign policy guided by the principles of non-membership of any geopolitical bloc. Our tradition in foreign policy has always been non-aligned. We do not wish to be part of any geopolitical bloc. And this tradition, I think I am committed to continue and to pursue, because it is not only in our tradition, it is the wish of the majority of the Indonesian people, and more importantly, it's in our national interest. Indonesia, because of our history, because of our geographical position, we are basically in the middle of great civilizations. We are at the crossroads of great civilizations. We have been the crossroads for many, many centuries. Even now, we are in the middle of very important trading routes, strategic waterways. We are, I think, maybe the second or the third longest coastline in the world. We depend on trade. We have always depended on trade from our early existence as independent sultanates, principalities, etc. We live on trade. We are dependent on trade. So therefore, it has become our perceived interest to have this tradition, what I call the good neighbor policy. We want to maintain a policy of good neighborliness in our region and also in the world. Number one, this is in our strategic interest, what I call, even our defense outlook will be based on this premise. A web of strong friendship. This web of strong friendship will actually be our strongest pillar of foreign policy and, in the end, also our defense policy. Why? Because of the common denominator that every country in the world faces, especially in Southeast Asia. We need peace and stability for our economy to flourish, and we need our economy to flourish to bring prosperity to our people. That, in the final analysis, is the duty of any government. We must eradicate poverty. A regime, a government, a national leadership that cannot take care of its own people does not have any right to comment on the policies of other countries. We must take care of our own household first. We must take care of our people. For this, for our economy to flourish, we need peace and stability. We need good relations with all countries. We need this relationship web that will invite foreign investment, that will open markets for us, that will create jobs for our people, and in the final analysis, to eradicate poverty. Basically, That is my speech. Short and sweet, I think, right? I think this is the shortest speech I have made this year, you know? Because the tendency is for any politician, you know, once they get a microphone in front of them, they don't want to let go. But I realize so many distinguished ambassadors and so many distinguished leaders here, so I think I'll keep it short and to the point. This is our policy. This is our tradition. This is our conviction. We will not be part, as long, if I get the mandate, I will maintain this tradition. We will not join any bloc. We will not be part of any military alliance that is against our tradition. And in my conviction, it is against our national interest. We respect all the great powers in the world. The West has contributed great contributions to humanity. The East also. China has been a great civilization for thousands of years. Basically, it is the oldest human civilization in recorded history. India also. All the other powers. Russia, we respect. Russia has been a good friend of Indonesia. Africa, we suffered the same fate. We were under colonialism and imperialism for many, many years. We know what it means to live under oppression. Our parents, our grandparents imprisoned, our ancestors thrown away to many parts of the world. We know how demeaning it is to be considered second, third, fourth class. I, as a young man, I myself saw the signs outside swimming pools in Jakarta. It was in the wall, yeah, dipahat di marmer. It was what do you call it? Engraved in the marble, you know, and it said, "Verboden voor honden en inlander." I saw with my own eyes. In 1978, there was still this. You know, it was closed by a mosque. When I opened it, I saw this. So I would like to say that we identify with the peoples under occupation, striving for their independence everywhere. Because we felt it. I went to school in Singapore and Hong Kong when Singapore and Hong Kong were still British colony. There were certain parts that I, being a brown man, could not go in. So I experienced as a young boy. Therefore, we identify with the peoples that are striving for their independence today. However, that is the beauty of the Indonesian people and culture. We don't hold grudges. We have no enmity. We are now friends with the Dutch. We are friends with everybody now. I think that is the uniqueness of, maybe could be said, the uniqueness of Indonesia, that Indonesians basically forget easily. So basically, that concludes my talk. Therefore, this should not be pidato. Ya. Pidato itu panjang. Ini, let us say, a small talk. And better I conclude my remarks and I open myself for questions from the floor, if there are any. If there are no questions, all the better. But anyway, if you have a question, please give easy questions, not so difficult. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Bapak Prabowo. Now you give me a hard job to do because we are allotted not half an hour, so I have to fill in. Thank you for, I think, a very short but deep speech on the future of Indonesia's foreign policy under a Prabowo administration. If I may, before we open the Q&A, I'm going to use my power. Probably this is my only time to have power over you, but a question related to what you've been said. Being a non-aligned country, somehow we do need a clear policy towards big powers. What would be your initial thought on Indonesia's China policy or Indonesia's US policy? If I may request your insight on this.
Well, as I explained, we respect the United States. Let us be very clear, the United States has helped Indonesia in the critical moments of Indonesian history. This we must acknowledge. In our war of independence, the United States basically sided with Indonesia. That is a part of history. The United States put strong pressure on the Dutch to negotiate and to hand over sovereignty. That is part of history. So, no doubt about it that we cannot forget this debt of honor to the United States of America. In critical time, they sided with us. Also, I would like to say, Australia sided with us in our war of independence. This is a fact of history. In fact, when there was a United Nations mediation effort, and there was a committee of good officers, if I'm not mistaken, that was the committee of good officers. The Netherlands chose Belgium, right? That's a no-brainer, right there. But Indonesia chose Australia, and the United States was chosen by the United Nations. That shows the depth of our relationship. And we don't forget our friends in difficult times. However, we also recognize China's importance in Southeast Asia and also for Indonesia now. As I said, China is a great civilization. It has contributed a lot, and now it is very, 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 very active and contributing a lot to our economy. Russia, we also cannot forget. Russia helped Indonesia also in difficult times. Yes, at that time it was called the Soviet Union, but if you see Jakarta now, if you see our capital city, many of the great public works built by, at that time, Soviet Union, by Russian and by, let us say, Eastern Bloc countries. So, this is, if you ask me, we have to give due respect to these great powers. Yeah. We also have to respect and have the best of relations with India, with the Islamic countries, of course. We are majority Muslim, with Japan. So basically, Indonesia's my philosophy is 1,000 friends too few, one enemy too many. This is easier said than done. It is easy to say, but it's not easy to carry out. But this is, I'm convinced, even now, this is my philosophy in my my domestic politics. As you may have observed, right? I'm friends with everybody. Even if they don't want to be friends with me, I still want to be friends with them. Right? Right? I learned this the hard way. Through a long process, you know. When you are young, sometimes you are a bit, you are a bit unwise. As time goes on, so I'm convinced this is, and actually, I regret that I learned this teaching a bit late in my life. Had I learned it maybe in my 30s and 40s, maybe, I don't know, my biography would be a bit different. But it's okay. Yeah? Better late than never. So, my village, that is my philosophy, right? I mean, I'm sorry if somebody wants to get us here and get us there. I said, no, we are friends with all. And maybe as friends, to many sides, we can be of assistance. We can be some sort of bridge. We can be some sort of, when we needed them, they helped us. Maybe now we should give a payback. We should help those who once helped us. So I think that is my position regarding relations with the great powers.
Thank you, Pak Prabowo. I still have 15 minutes of your time, so I have one or two more questions before I open the floor. Something sounded like music to my ears when you were saying that basically foreign policy begins at home, that poverty alleviation should be very important, and then all domestic stabilities and so on. And we know that China has been praised by many reports that successive Chinese governments since 1970s have been able to lift more than 700 million people out of poverty. Would you emulate the way the Chinese governments are doing in terms of poverty alleviation?
Is this a trick question? I want to make something very clear. Yeah? I do admire and acknowledge the success of the Chinese leaders in nearly eradicating poverty. I think we have to. Anybody with any fairness in the rationality, etc., must acknowledge that the Chinese leaders has achieved something very rare in human history, to lift 700 million people out of poverty in one generation, in 40 years. That is a real achievement. So in my opinion, each country, each civilization has its own culture, has its own way of doing things. If a government in one country succeeded in mitigating or even eradicating poverty, I think it behooves us to try to learn how they did it. But it does not mean that we can copy their methods, maybe their methods is not in tune with our culture. So we have to adjust. At the same time, many of our people, especially the educated elite, for the last 50 years, maybe 60 years, we have been always looking to the West. I think it's normal. We were colonized by the West, so a lot of our experience, our thinking, we like to emulate the West, because the West, no doubt, has succeeded in many fields. Industrial Revolution, Reformation, the Renaissance, development of democracy. We must acknowledge the great strides of the West. But on the other hand, we cannot copy what works for the West. We cannot bring to Indonesia and or bring anywhere in the world and try to carry it out, especially in the West. So there are nuances. So I think there must be a rebalancing. And now we have to learn from other countries, from the East, the Japanese experience, the Korean experience, the Chinese experience, the Indian experience. So this is my position, that we admire what the Chinese have done. Tremendous achievement. And I think many of the Chinese leaders are true to their principles and true to their conviction. They understand that they have to serve the people. So I think this is the message that not that we can copy, we can emulate everything they have done. No, we have our way of doing things. They have their way of doing things. Yeah, we can emulate. Maybe their commitment against corruption, their focus on education, their strong discipline, their strong national pride. This we admire. If you go to a Chinese high school, you will find out they spend many hours in the school. They go home maybe 9 o'clock at night. So this type of dedication, this type of commitment, it's something that it behooves us to study and to try to adopt some of the best practices. Thank you.
Thank you.